This is the story of the hungry baby elephant. Once upon a time, the baby elephant woke up and he was laying next to his friend, the little squirrel. And the little squirrel woke up with a little tiny yawn. "Ah." And the elephant asked, "Did you sleep well?" And the little squirrel said, "Yes, quite well, thank you. I don't think I ever learned your name. What is your name, friend?" And the little elephant said, "My name is Lolo. Lolo the elephant. What is your name?" "My name is Samo. Samo the squirrel." "Well, Samo, I promised you that we'd go looking for these peanuts of which you talked. So, where do we find them?" "They're gonna be somewhere where it's warm, usually, and they get buried under the ground. We look for the little plant, and that's where we'll find these delicious peanuts." Well, baby elephant stood up and looked around and didn't see anything near where his family lived that was warm. He said, "Well, I don't know. Where would it be warm? Where would these peanuts grow?" And the little squirrel looked around and said, "On the other side of the forest." "Back where we saw those apples, on the other side of the apple trees?" "Yes." "Very well, let us go," Lolo said, excited to go and eat more apples because they were so delicious. Samo and Lolo started walking across the fields, and Lolo called out to his mom, "Hi, Mom." Excuse me. "Hi, Mom. We're going to go explore for some food. I'll be back before bedtime." "Well, okay," Lolo's mom said. "Just be safe and make sure you come back. Don't go too far away." Lolo and Samo walked all the way across the field as the sun started to rise and wake up. Birds started to chirp, and it started to get a little bit warm. Samo said, "Oh, I'm getting so tired. I have such little legs, it's hard for me to walk this far." Lolo said, "Well, why don't you climb up and ride on my back?" And Samo did just that. He scurried up Lolo's trunk, climbed on top of his head, and sat down between those two big ears on the top of his head. And he watched the land pass by as Lolo walked and walked and walked until Lolo was back in the forest. "Well, I think it's time that we stop and get some apples. I'm quite hungry." "Quite hungry? We've only been walking for 30 minutes. "Well, elephants, we must eat all the time. We're very big, and I'm a growing boy. I must always be eating." "Okay." Samo scurried up a tree and chewed apple stems so that the apple would fall. Lolo would catch it and eat it. And they ate 20 apples, and then they continued to walk through the forest. The trees provided good shade from the sun, so it was not too hot in the forest. They made it to the other side of the forest, and Lolo almost stepped in a big pile of poop, but he heard a voice call, "No, no, don't squish the poopy. No squish the poopy. No, no." And he looked and he saw a dog, and the dog was telling Lolo not to step in the poop. "Oh, thank you, friend. Much obliged. We're just trying to walk through, and I didn't see that. I was trying to avoid getting my head stuck against a tree." Well, the dog ran away and was happy to see his poo-poo was not squished. Lolo and Samo made it across the entire forest. And then Samo smiled wide. The little squirrel said, "Well, I think I see it. See all those little green plants in the ground?" "Why, yes, I do, but I don't see any peanuts. All I see is little bits of green. It looks like fancy grass." "You mean peanuts are tall, fancy grass?" "No, underneath it." And Samo jumped all the way down from Lolo's head onto the ground because he was so excited, and ran towards the little plants, and he started to dig with his little tiny claws. And he dug until he got down, and then he pulled out a peanut inside of a shell. And he looked and held it up proudly to Lolo and said, "Look here, I found a peanut, a mighty peanut." And he started to use his little tiny teeth to crack open the shell, and then out popped 2 little tiny peanuts. He held one up and said, "Here, Lolo, this one's for you. I'll eat the other one." And then Samo took a bite of his peanut and was so happy, and Lolo looked down at the peanut and tried to grab it with his trunk, but it was so small. He said, "I'm afraid it might be too small for me. I don't know if I can even eat it." Samo stopped his chewing and said, "Open your mouth wide, I'll throw it in." So Lolo squatted down really low to the ground, opened his mouth wide, and Samo threw the peanut inside of Lolo's mouth. Lolo closed his mouth. I did taste something quite nice, didn't I? I would quite like to eat a lot of them to know what it tastes like." "Well, then dig some up. You've got those little tusks. You can put them right in the ground, or you can use your feet or your trunk, anything. Just start digging them up. They're here for everyone." So Lolo started playing with the dirt, digging. And then he found if he put his tusk into the ground and pushed, a whole row of peanuts would pop up to the surface. He could then pick those up and crunch them with the whole shell and the inside nut. It's quite delicious, I must admit. Quite delicious. Samo laid down, having eaten 4 peanuts. He was very full and tired. But Lolo kept going because he was so big it was hard to get him full. Lolo said, "These are quite good, but I don't know if it's enough. I think we need to find something bigger for me to eat." Samo said, "Okay, well, I'll go with you, but I don't know what's better than a peanut. What about a watermelon? Those are big. Have you ever tried that?" Lolo said, "Why, I think I did once, and I quite liked it. It's that little green fruit, isn't it?" "Little? It's huge. It's not little at all." "Well, where can we find this watermelon?" "Oh, down by the bay. That's where the watermelons grow. But I don't always like to go there because if I do, my mother will say something silly." "Well, let us go then down towards the bay." Samo climbed back up on top of Lolo and sat down on his head and pointed the direction. And they walked down to the bay. And then, sure enough, Samo called out, "There they are, there's the watermelons." And Lolo walked to the watermelons, picked one up with his trunk, and ate it. It was quite delicious. He ate another, and another, and another, and another, and another. Lolo the little elephant ate 20 watermelons before he finally laid down and said, "Oof, I'm finally full. Those were delicious and worth the walk. While those peanuts were lovely, I will tell you, these watermelons are fantastic and delicious. I think it's time for my nap now. What do you think, Samo? Would you like to take a little nap with me?" "Yes, I think a nap sounds good. I'm kind of tired, too." Lolo laid down and put his head on top of a watermelon and used it as a pillow. Samo curled up next to his tummy and rested in, feeling nice and warm. Lolo the elephant started to breathe nice and calm. He closed his eyes and thought about a sleeping puppy dog just laying there, the tired little dog, breathing in and out. And the little baby elephant, Lolo, suddenly was so tired from walking all across the plains, walking across the forest, and walking all the way down to the bay. His heavy eyelids closed. He found the perfect comfortable position, wiggled in, and he fell asleep.